we know the Chiefs are heading out to Germany, and so someone that's going to be on the broadcast is Jason McCourty, Super Bowl champion, 13-year NFL career. He'll be the analyst for the Dolphins Chiefs this Sunday, 8:30 in the morning on NFL Network. You can also see Jason throughout the week on NFL Network's Good Morning Football at 6 a.m. here, local time. I wanted to start, Jason, though, with what occurred on Sunday for the Chiefs against the Broncos. Sometimes is it just as simple as you turn the ball over 5 times? What do you expect to happen?
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly where you start, and that's not typical of a Kansas City Chiefs team. I know Mahomes had flu-like symptoms and everything, but they just didn't perform the way that we've seen them perform this year. And even as they've gotten off to a slower start early on with the loss to Detroit and the offense kind of coming around, the defense has been really good. And the offense, when you have 5 turnovers, especially the muff punt by McCourty later in the game where you still had a chance, and then Sky Moore drops the deep one to Patrick Mahomes. The crazy thing is, you watch them, as poorly as they might have played in the turnovers, they still had a chance after chance in that game, came up short. The Broncos put a good game plan together, especially defensively, to limit the Kansas City Chiefs offense.
You've been on a lot of really good teams with high expectations going into big games. Is the look-ahead game effect real, right? Is there some chance that this was, hey, we got to be focused on Miami and the challenge we're going to have with Tyreek and all this stuff, and Denver's kind of a joke, so we're not going to take them serious?
I don't think so, because when you're playing teams within your division, as poorly as some teams may be playing, the division games always seem like they're the toughest one to get. I mean, these two teams played a few weeks ago on that Thursday night game, and that wasn't a game where Kansas City just came in and beat the Broncos down. It was a close game, and the Broncos are driving late in that game, and McDuffie puts a hit on Samaje Perine and forces the fumble to end that game. But I think for them, you're not looking ahead of a division opponent, even though I know they had won so many games straight. I think it was 16 straight against the Denver Broncos, but those games are usually toughly fought.
Mahomes, after the game, said, the Broncos kind of put out a blueprint to show, that they can slow their offense down, and now teams are going to copy that until the Chiefs can prove that they can beat that. What are the Broncos doing so well, and how do you think the Chiefs can kind of get teams to get out of that?
I think the challenge for the Chiefs right now is if Travis Kelce doesn't beat you, who else on the offense is going to be the one to step up and be able to put a game together? And you look at that, that's what they were able to do. Kelce didn't have the 120-yard game with the 2 touchdowns or the big plays, play after play. And I think that's how you limit this Kansas City Chiefs offense. And Isaiah Pacheco has been really good for them running the ball on the ground. But if you can limit Kelce and force somebody else to be the guy and beat you, that's going to be, I feel like, the formula to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know it's a lot easier said than done, but when you look at it, who's going to be the guy? Rashee Rice was the guy that was mostly targeted from Mahomes yesterday. He comes up with some big catches, had a big drop. Valdez-Scantling fumbled the ball away. We saw the one late that I mentioned already, Sky Moore going deep, and then McCourty fumbles it. And then Kadarius Toney had 1 target, 1 catch. We haven't seen a ton from him. So this was a team where you're like, all right, Mahomes is that good that he can make the players around him better. But some of those guys, one of them, 2 of them, they have to be able to step up.
Does that mean you think they should maybe make later today, they'll have a chance at the trade deadline? People here, look, they'll beg for anybody. They'll talk themselves into Justin Jefferson in Kansas City. But, realistically, do they need to look at wide receiver at the deadline, or do they have to just stick with this group and hope that there's improvement?
I think you look at a guy that they just played against yesterday or 2 days ago, and you look at Jerry Jeudy and what his ability is. And I think when you say the trade deadline, it's easy to say, all right, just go get a Mike Evans, go get a DeAndre Hopkins, go ahead and bring anybody over to this team. But it's more about what is it going to take to get somebody there. What is the Denver Broncos, if they're willing to trade Jerry Jeudy, what's the asking price? Because I do think for them, you can get a guy to come over and really help this team. Juju Smith-Schuster was huge last year, had over 900 yards receiving and made big plays for them. So far through the season, you haven't had a veteran guy that you're saying that is stepping up and making those crucial plays. So I do think for them, you do explore the trade deadline, and the asking price isn't too high for a guy like Jerry Jr. You do go out and get him. But I think at the same time, if the asking price is too high, I do believe Patrick Mahomes is that good that we're not about to do a wholesale to go get a receiver or somebody to come in and change the whole complexity of our offense. It's going to move on Patrick Mahomes, and his connection with Kelce is that good. I know we're all sometimes the Chiefs lose a game, and it's like, oh, my goodness, the sky is falling. They've lost 2 games. They're going to be okay.
I think that the eye of Chiefs fans has been really on Sky Moore. He's been kind of the end of these jokes. But I was thinking about the trade deadline last year. They go and get Kadarius Toney When you watch him play, is there something that stands out about why he is unavailable or not being targeted or not running what I think we would call like all the traditional routes versus just the gimmicky close stuff? What do you think is wrong with Kadarius Toney?
I think a lot of it is making the most of your opportunities. And so far this season, and they've continued to go to him, but you look at the first game. I'm not holding the first game against him, but I think for a team and for when it comes to football, you get your reps. You have to go out there and do something with them. Justin Watson, to me, has been their most consistent receiver, where it seems like whenever he's throwing the ball, he's the guy who's coming away with the reception. I know he's not often targeted the most. He might not be the most talented receiver on the roster. And a guy like Kadarius Toney, you see all the talent in the world, especially when he has the ball in his hand. When you talk about running every route, I think with the Kansas City and what Andy Reid's been able to be really good at is he gives guys the ball and puts them in positions to succeed. I think Kadarius Toney, one of his best attributes is those type of plays, catch and runs, whether it's screens, short passes, where he's able to get the ball in his hands, and he's really good at being able to make guys miss. But I think he hasn't been out there as much because he hasn't made the most of his opportunities. And at this same time, when you start to see it kind of going around and you're inserting guys and no one is, you may end up going back to Kadarius Toney and see if he can come up with something. But right now, I don't know where they go to get that kind of juice or spark from the receiver position.
We're talking to Jason McCourty, Super Bowl champ, 13-year NFL career. He's going to be the analyst for the Dolphins Chiefs this Sunday morning from Frankfurt on NFL Network. We know each team is approaching this week a little bit differently. Jason, the Chiefs, not surprisingly, with Andy Reid, are going to wait till Friday to head down there, or Thursday and practice on Friday, I should say, whereas the Dolphins and their coaching staff decided to get them down earlier. You played overseas, I think, for a few times, at least in London, if I'm not mistaken. How do you think that mindset, or at least the extra travel, impacts the team?
It's so tough to get heads or tails of what's better, what's not. It seems as though we watched the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville, now that was a little different. They had the game before. They stayed down there. They were able to win that game. Well, the two times I went in London, I did it the same way Kansas City did. We left on Thursday night, and we went down. We got there Friday, went straight to practice in the whole nine. Now, I will say both my games I played in London, we both lost, so I'm not saying that's the recipe. That's the recipe that works. But one of my coaches, when I was in Cleveland, he was in Jacksonville for a number of years, and he said they did it every which way. They went down for the entire week. They went down later in the week. He said when they went the whole week, by the time the game came, guys were tired. They were ready to go home. They had just been there too long. So I don't know what the right formula is. It seems like lately, though, the teams that go down early get more adjusted, get ready, the time clock in the whole nine. It seems like they're doing better. But I don't know. I think it's Sunday you kick the ball off. Whichever team performs better wins the game. I'm not going to put so much into travel. It's just about kind of doing the right things once you get there to try to get your body back.
Has too much been made about Miami? Like, we talk about the Chiefs all the time, but, like, one of the big stats about Miami has been they haven't beaten a winning team since early last year, week 3 or 4, whatever it was. Is too much made of that stat for the Dolphins, considering the fact they've won enough games to maybe dispel that somewhat?
I don't think too much is made of it. I think for the Miami Dolphins, you look at it, go out and win one of those games. You have the Kansas City Chiefs this week. If you want people to stop talking about that stat, and even for themselves, because you have to be on the team and you have to look at it and be objective. You're looking at and you're seeing the teams that you've beaten, the quarterbacks you played, the different things of that nature. Beating a Kansas City Chiefs team with a Patrick Mahomes, it changes who you are as a team, because you look at this past year, they played the Philadelphia Eagles. They played them tough. It was a good game. But Hurts and the Eagles came out on top. They played the Buffalo Bills earlier in the season, and Josh Allen them kind of put a beat down on them. So for them, yes, they're winning games. You give them their credit, which I think everybody has done. You're talking about them as one of the best teams in the AFC. But it's okay to acknowledge that and also be honest and say, all right, the teams that they're beating, that they're supposed to beat. So you give them credit for that, but you want to see them go out and do it against a winning football team.
We know Tyreek Hill firsthand how special he is here in Kansas City. Of course, now so with the Dolphins in year number 2. What's considered a win when you go up against a guy like Tyreek Hill? Because I feel like if you hold him under like 120 yards, you're doing a great job.
So I remember back in 2018, I was playing in New England, and we went down to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs, and that was the AFC Championship game. We double-teamed Tyreek Hill single play of the game. And I think he had one catch, and it was still for like 45 yards on a deep pass. And to your point, the way you win is you don't let him get the big one. He may get 10 catches and may end up with 95 yards. That's okay. you just don't want the ball going over your head because you watched it this past week, a 42-yard bomb where he runs by 2 Patriots DBs. When the ball goes over your head, nobody else can play. All the other 10 defenders or 9 defenders that are left, they have nothing to do with the play because they can't stop that. So I think for this Chiefs defense who knows it well, they've seen it in practice, they've seen it up close and personal. If you can keep him in front of you, that is the win. The biggest difference of when I played against those guys when he was in Kansas City and we double-team him and we go man-to-man elsewhere, there's a lot of speed on this Miami Dolphins team. Jalen Waddle's on the other side. So you can't just say we're just going to go out and double-team Tyreek Hill, but you got to find a way to limit him and not give up the big play.
I was like another corner's opinion. I'm really high on Trent McDuffie. Do you think he's one of the emerging best corners in the NFL?
Oh, no doubt about it. McDuffie has been outstanding. L'Jarius Sneed has been really good for the Kansas City Chiefs defense, following different guys. But McDuffie's ability is not – it sometimes goes unheralded, but a guy's ability to play on the outside and transition into the slot when his 3 receiver sets, that's not easy. The slot position is totally different from an outside cornerback where you're a little bit of a linebacker and a little bit of the DB. Covering people in the slot, now you have both sides where there's equal room. Where you're on the outside, the sideline is kind of your friend. And we've seen Snead go from outside to inside, and now it's McDuffie. I think he's been outstanding this year, making plays. Also, the Minnesota game matched up a ton with Justin Jefferson in the slot. He's been really good as a cover guy for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Jason McCourty joining us here on 610 Sports Radio. You can watch Jason throughout the week on NFL Network's Good Morning Football at 6 a.m. local time. And, of course, this weekend in Frankfurt, Germany, you'll be the analyst for the Dolphins and Chiefs on NFL Network. Thanks so much for the time. Enjoy Germany.
Oh, will do. Thanks for having me, guys.